Hello and welcome to a scuffed Wonderland podcast. Sorry, a Bergkamp Wonderland podcast. The reason I say scuffed is because when Danny's not here, I mean everything goes off out the window. Really, there's no rules, nothing. It's just yeah, it goes off. Anyway, one rule that is always in place is I'm your host. My name is Kris. You might know me from such platforms as Twitter and Instagram. Other than that, you can't find me anywhere else but the back pages. I have got two fabulous guests with me this evening. I, first of all, have a regular regular visitor of this parish, I should say, and that is Mr. Josh Daw. Josh, how was dinner?
It was pretty tasty. I could show off my skills with an air fryer now. Have had an air fryer for a whole week. It also does slow cookers. This morning, I woke up to a freshly overnight cooked chicken soup that I had for my lunch. And don't I sound like as much as a wanker as I look with that statement?
I wasn't going to go with the look, but the wanker bit was definitely, yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
You sound like one of those people that is talking about the heating bill every 5 minutes. So don't do that. Please don't do that.
Oh, it cost me 6p. Cost me 6p.
6p.
6p. My soup overnight. 6p.
Are you gonna turn your house into Forest Green Rovers Stadium at any time soon, or is that the next step to your revolution? Or
I mean, right now with going how windy it is in Brighton, it does feel like some of the sides are open and the weather is coming in from all corners.
I went across a bridge.
Maybe.
I went across a bridge earlier on. And I haven't been blown that well since university. Anyway, let's move on. We've also got a returning face. I know him well. I'm sure you guys will remember him from the good old days of Goonosphere. If you don't, well, I don't know if the podcasts are still available, but if they are, probably best to avoid them unless you've got headphones. It's Mr. Daniel Cowan. Dan, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, Kris. How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm all right, mate. Yeah, it's been a while. I was trying to think earlier on. Probably the last time we podded together must have been Goonosphere days. I would imagine, anyway, unless we had a random crossing of paths since.
I think I had a guest feature a couple of years ago here. Although you did look genuinely perplexed at being asked if you're okay.
Oh, did I?
Are the other podcasters being mean to you, Kris?
No, it's just that I'm locked in the basement. As you can see, I don't leave this room, so it's just what's that? It's that Stockholm syndrome. That's what it is. But no, I'm all right. I'm okay. I'm just me, really. Nothing exciting ever happens in my life, but I can confirm I am
That's not true. I follow you on Twitter and Instagram. Plenty of exciting things happen in your life.
Some. In fact, my Instagram is probably more interesting than my Twitter because I was sat there last night hovering over the reply button to a few people with very short memories of ex-Arsenal players, but in the end, I chose not to. Josh knows what I mean.
Can I quickly just say that I would happily get Kolasinac back from Marseille just so we can rip his contract up again for that miss.
I mean, that was, yeah, he isn't the one
I'd keep re-signing him and keep just ripping that contract up in his face.
Yeah, God, what a miss.
I don't think that's the punishment.
And they wouldn't have had time to come back.
Constantly.
I won't pay him for it.
Yeah.
So, do you want to come back again?
You invite him back and say, look, we're re-signing you. Yeah. Do the tour around Colney, get Edu to show him about these are all the amazing things, this and that. And then just as he's about to sign the contract, slap the pen out of his hand. And then say, sorry, not today. That's how you pay him back for that miss. Maybe not the money, just snatch the dream away.
Yeah.
We could even introduce him to, we could even say this is our tunnel area. We could give him the full Ivan Gazidis treatment and then mercilessly throw him out the back door. But anyway, yes, that's or the Kolasinac step. That's there you go. There is the future of the Emirates Stadium. Anyway, enough waffle. Let's do some more waffle, but about the game. We're not going to go back to PSV last week because, frankly, who the fuck wants to go back over that disaster? My God, we were bad. So we'll just draw a line under that straight from the off and pretend
it didn't happen.
Exactly, it didn't happen. Nobody knows. Nobody saw it. It didn't happen. We'll instead talk about the win on Sunday. Daniel, let's get your thoughts first of all, because going into this game, I was fairly confident we would win it. I'm not going to lie, but I sort of thought it would be a cagey 1-0, like one of those where, it's like a Wolves or a Cardiff I think back to some of those games that we've gone through in the past. It was sort of going that way, and then halftime came, and then it all sort of changed, and it was very easy in the second half. How much do you put that down to how good we were and how utterly abysmal Forest were? Because my God, are they bad?
Do you know what? I don't actually think Forest are that bad. And I don't want us to kind of get into that, that narrative of, Arsenal are only top of the league because we're playing crap teams. Forest have got some good results against some good teams, and they've had some pretty naff results. But what do you expect when you're bedding in 37,000 different new signings? In your first year back in the Premier League after about half a millennia. But overall, I mean, for a newly promoted team, I think they're actually playing some pretty brave stuff. I think there are a lot of teams that come up would just sit back and just defend no matter who they're playing and just try and, I don't know, draw their way to Premier League survival. So, I need 40 points to survive. If I draw 37 games and win one, we've got our 40 points, so we're all good. But I think that actually that kind of cavalier attitude that they've had has got them some decent results. And I think Arsenal teams of the past, I'm gonna say pre-Arteta, late Wenger, sort of pretty much all of Emery's time, we probably still would have won that game, but Forest would have stuck 3 or 4 past us, and we would have won it 5-4 rather than 5-0. The only thing I could really say about the game is that I was just desperately sad not to be there, because I had tickets and then I had to give my ticket away to my brother because I had COVID. So I couldn't actually go. And I was like testing every day going, please be negative so I can go. And because I just had a feeling it was going to be a big win. And I think that's something that Arsenal's really missed this year, is having a really stonking, convincing win against a team you expect us to dispatch. You expect us to beat Forest, but as you say, you expect a cagey 1-0, maybe 2-0, but it's to actually stick 5 past the team and never really look like we were going to concede. I think it's going to do wonders for the squad, especially when you consider the players who managed to, finish up on the pitch. We ended with, Cedric on the pitch. Half of our best players had kind of gone off or were injured or were having a bit of an off day in some respects. And then, we had that fantastic second half Nelson. So, which was great to see.
Yeah, we will definitely come on to him shortly. Josh, I again sort of saying to Daniel there before, like I just had that feeling that we kind of needed to start quickly because we needed to set the tone, because you know what you're going to get from a Forest side that are that Liverpool result aside, which almost seems like a bit of a gimme playing Liverpool at the moment, but it was a bit of an anomaly. They got that win, and I sort of felt like their blueprint was going to be turn up, stick sort of 10 men behind the ball, look for counters. Didn't happen, and it really all came from that sort of opening salvo and Martinelli scoring a header. I think there was some talk in training. I believe is Alvin Stoneboat saying, one of the coaching staff was saying that he's one of the best headers of the ball at the club at the moment, which surprised me slightly. But really, really good header from him, wasn't it? To set the tone, getting across his marker and heading home Bukayo Saka's sort of pretty clever cross, I thought, because it was right into that area where nobody wants to defend, and in came Martinelli. Good start there, wasn't it? Yeah. Good way to get off against the side that were going to sit back.
Absolutely. And to be honest, I could say that I was at the Forest game before the Liverpool one, which was away to Brighton. And that's what you kind of saw, that it was a team that at the moment, they just need points. By hook or by crook, they will get points out of a game. So we've seen it at the Emirates. And we can go back to any team that Sam Allardyce has managed in the last 2 decades, and I could name another English manager of that era and their team coming to the Emirates. And you know what I'm now going to say is that team would try and get to halftime at 0-0 and then continue, and maybe 88th minute, okay, there might be a chance of 3 points here, but you know what? Actually, we'll take the point. And that's what that Forest team is kind of set up for at the moment, is they'll take a draw. They didn't expect anything out of the game. And you know what? If we'd not broken them down so quickly after 5 minutes, we know it would have been a slog for at least that first half. We didn't let them get set. That's one of the big things I've noticed under Arteta now, is that we're hitting teams quickly and early. And yeah, it was just a fantastic start to the game. I think most people in the UK hadn't even managed to find a reliable stream by the time kickoff had happened. So yeah, it was a great start.
Or if you're like me, I just didn't bother with streams at all. Arsenal.com, listen to the commentary, happy days. But just sticking with you for a minute, in terms of the lineup, there's been a bit of hand wringing about sort of Kieran Tierney's situation. We might maybe touch on that later on if anybody has any questions or that regard. We'll come on to that maybe to finish. But he didn't start again in this game, and once again we played Tomiyasu. Now, no issue with playing Tomiyasu, absolutely not. You know, he's come into the side of recent weeks and has played really well. My only sort of slight thought on it is, I don't know, I'm just not sure I'm 100% sold on this playing at home to a side bottom in the league or there or thereabouts and basically playing 4 centre-backs. I just sort of felt like maybe this would have been the game to bring Tierney back in. Some people are saying there's an argument to say, well, actually, it's a fitness issue with Zinchenko only just coming back to training today. You didn't want to risk Tierney, etc. Did you raise an eyebrow at that, or were you sort of quite content with Tomiyasu still being in that left-back slot?
Yeah, I think he's the player that's shown that outside of Zinchenko playing in that position, for me, I think he's the next best thing compared to Tierney. Tierney isn't that kind of left-back. He doesn't do what Arteta really wants that player now to do in that position. You can see that if we were to bring Tierney on, to be honest, it would probably be more likely in the positions that Martinelli's picking up. You know, you want him out on the wing, getting chalk on his boots, and then feeding the more talented players who can finish. That's kind of what we've got him for. And I can see a situation, and I think I mentioned it before the season started, that I could see quite happily Kieran Tierney being moved on in the summer. And not just necessarily because of his injury record, but he doesn't fit what Arteta now wants to bring to this side, I think, defensively. You can see that, I know I don't want to go back to the blueprint of Guardiola, and how you can see that how Arteta kind of mirrors some of the styles that Guardiola's got. If you look at their available left backs, it's Nathan Ake and Gomez, who's a kid straight from Anderlecht.
Or João Cancelo out of position.
João Cancelo, who's now got to play. Yeah, he's out. He's now over at right back because Kyle Walker's injured. So they are very different players. I think we'd all agree Cancelo is very much like a midfielder rather than a fullback, with that kind of traditional sense of a fullback. And Tierney, yeah, he's bringing that into his game. He does now look more comfortable when he's playing inside the pitch rather than hugging that touchline. But from what I could see for trying to break down this team, especially the Nottingham Forest team, is, do I want to be spending most of my time giving it out to the fullback who's then going to knock crosses in for Steve Cook just to go, yep, and just keep heading them out? Because that's what I would see Forest as, just being happy all day. It's exactly what they want. Centre-backs who are being protected by this side, really. Just getting balls into the box, because that's what they'll do with every day. They dealt with it in the Championship, and they'll deal with it again in the Premier League. It needed a bit more finesse, and you could see with all the goals we scored, it wasn't a kind of, right, we've just stuck a big guy in there and we're just trying to brute force our way through. It was intricate. There was a lot of clever movement. That's the way that we unlocked that Nottingham Forest defence. And I think it's all credit to that change we've had. And yeah, it's a shame that Tierney, I know he is a fan favourite and even Arteta favourite when he came in, but Tierney's now not the only guy in training who works hard. I think that's clear. He was the marker, and you can see how everybody below him has basically left the club, and we're only left with the young boys who are still there, or bringing in these new players who have that work ethic. I think the only other one that has really survived since then is Granit Xhaka. It's the only other player with a similar work ethic.
The cockroach of Colney, as I call him, in the nicest possible way. Yeah. I'd say I take it. And I have to stress, I'm not sitting here moaning. I know that there's that period of time, isn't there, before a game when the team news goes up and everyone has a collective, like, just meltdown. I don't really know. I say everyone, people who are that way inclined, that don't really get it. I just raised an eyebrow myself. I thought he would start, but alas, it doesn't really matter. One thing we also need to talk about before we go into the second half, where it all happened, Daniel, is the Saka injury. I saw in Arteta's press conference today ahead of the game on Thursday, they asked him about this and basically said, like, why did it take so long? Because it seemed to be, he got a kick very early on, then he got another kick, and it was sort of pretty apparent when he was hobbling around that he couldn't put weight on it. It was either sort of a dead leg or an impact injury in the ankle or the shin area. And it was very clear to me that the decision needed to be made for him. But it seemed like there was some discussion between Gary O'Driscoll and Arteta about what to do. Eventually, they made the call to bring him off. Were you as, I say surprised, I was sat at home going, well, Reiss Nelson, it's got to be. Like, and I know some people thought Vieira would be the logical one. I wanted a winger, and I wanted that opportunity for Nelson. When he was the man who got the call, was it surprising for you, or did you kind of agree with me and think that was the right substitution to make at that time?
Well, I think both. I think it was the right substitution to make, but it was surprising to see Reiss come on. I think, I'm, and have been from the day he was appointed, a fan of Arteta. Even from his playing days, just watching the way that he used to marshal the team, and he used to, be telling his fellow players where they should be positioning themselves. You got to remember, this is a guy who came to us late in his career, who was probably, incredibly grateful. Well, we know how grateful he was because he took a pay cut, but incredibly grateful to be joining a top level club, probably thinking that it was never really going to happen for him, having not made it at Barcelona and never really broken through at PSG, and sort of the pinnacle of his career had been Rangers and Everton. And he came to us as an attacking midfielder, and he had a really great reputation as a mid-table attacking midfielder. And he came in, and then he started taking that deep line playmaker role, almost defensive midfielder position. And I think that at the time when he came in, he was exactly what we needed, and he was a great player. But you could see that he was a very tactical, strategic player. And when it was clear that he was going to go into coaching and that he was interested in the Arsenal job and Arsenal were interested in him, I thought, well, if we're going to take a chance on someone, I'd want to take a chance on Arteta, because I feel like he's someone who gets the club. And I think we've seen that, through the documentary, and we've seen the progression of the team over the last couple of years. But having said that, if I do have a criticism of him, it's that he clearly has his favourites, in the sense of he's got a core nucleus of players. And I think that comment where he said, well, if you want to be a top level player, you've got to play 50, 60 games. I think that's more of a case that that's him saying, I've got certain players that I want to play 50, 60 games a year for me. When we all know, we've all watched enough football to know that when you play a 50, 60 game season, the only player who usually gets, up to that number, sort of 50 plus games, is usually a goalkeeper, because they don't have a lot of running about to do. Most other players, featuring in every Premier League game of the season is sort of a big accolade, and very few people do it. And then you add in the cup games and the European games. The idea that, a player is going to play 50 or 60 games in the season, I think is just bizarre. So when he said that, I thought, this is clearly, you just don't want to play these other players, because you don't think, like going back to the Tierney thing, you don't think they quite fit your system. They're bodies and they're available, and you'll use them if you have to. But if you don't have to, you will string out for as long as possible. And I think that's why he kept Saka on, is that he was sort of hoping he'd run off the injury and he wouldn't have to change his system. But then I think what's happened is, I think there are players on the periphery who are starting to see what they have to do. And not to go back to the Tierney point too much, something I did notice about Tierney when he came on was how he was playing that Zinchenko role. The amount of time he spent in central midfield, he was tucking in. And it was like, I've never seen Tierney tuck in before. And I think that people are seeing, like, if I want to play in Arteta's Arsenal, this is what I have to do. And I think Nelson is one of those players who's the difference that Nottingham Forest, it's one game, so I don't want to say he's completely changed the way he's played, but the way he was playing for us when he had chances before, the way he's played when he's been out on loan, that's not how he's been playing. Those aren't the positions he was taking up. You know, the confidence he had with the ball, the decisions he was making. I think that there are a few, not all, but there are a few players around the team who know that their only chance of getting in the team is actually to emulate the players that they want to replace rather than being a better version of themselves. I think Nelson's looking at it going, I can't play for Arsenal if I'm just Reiss Nelson. The way I get into Arteta's team is I have to play like Bukayo Saka. And I think when he came on, he played a very similar game. He took up the positions I would expect Saka to take up. He made the decisions I would expect Saka to make. And I think that was the difference. When he came in, I didn't see, there was no noticeable shift in the team. It wasn't like it was a plan B. We were bringing on a player to play a different game. He wasn't a substitute in the sense, like a substitute is usually you bring someone on to change the game, right? You're going to bring someone on to change the tactics, to change the formation, to add something new. You know, you've got the reason Tomiyasu went over in left back in the first place was we knew that you needed a right-footed defender against Salah because, you know, he cuts in, and that's why it worked. So you make those tactical changes to adjust to who you're playing or how the game is going. But Nelson came on and he wasn't a substitute. He wasn't there to change anything. He was just there to be a replacement for Saka and to do what Saka did. And I think if he keeps playing like that, he'll get more chances. And I think he'll have a good. He'll play well. And you know, and I think another player who did a great job when they first came into the team, but when they're fit again and they come back, I think is going to have to probably change the way they play a lot. Is Smith Rowe. Because I don't see how the Smith Rowe who broke into the team and made that big difference, playing the way he played, gets in this current team. Because he doesn't replace Martinelli. Because you get rid of Martinelli, you've got to change the whole formation, the whole strategy. He's not going to play instead of Odegaard because he doesn't have the same skill set. He might play in certain games. And I think, you know, if we're talking plan B players, you know, we're really looking at those European games when Eddie's playing up front. We'll have different styles of wingers and we'll have different styles of fullbacks, and that will work. But the way that Arteta wants to play in the Premier League and to get us into Champions League spots, hopefully to keep us at the top of the table for as long as possible, you have to be Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard, Jesus. Those are the players you have to be if you want to play in this team.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point you make about the style of Nelson in terms of like being more Bukayo Saka-esque, and there's plenty of things that we can sort of, I guess, chow down on whilst we're in World Cup mode with regards to the players that are either going to be staying home and then coming back in. In your view, Josh, I mean, obviously, like if we put the two goals together, the one thing that Nelson, I think, has done when he's come on in recent games, certainly since he's been given a bit of an opportunity since coming back from injury, he's very direct, isn't he? He seems to be a player that likes to go at people, and he you could see even in the PSV game at home in particular, when he came on in that game, he was trying to make an impression straight away. You could see he was trying to sort of catch the eye and almost maybe doing too much. But in this game, what I particularly liked was in both goals, especially the first one where he leaves the defender on his arse, gets a little bit of fortune to get the rebound, but he made that luck himself. He was in the right place at the right time, and it gave us that threat from that wide area. And I would argue that because Marquinhos is quite raw, it almost feels like Nelson will be that one who will be the deputy for the Sakas and the Martinellis if they do require a break. Is that what impressed you most about the opportunity that he took in this game? Is the fact that he did just that, came in, took the opportunity, and, as Dan said, replaced Saka in the best possible way in that game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing that came most across was when I was thinking about where we've seen Reiss Nelson before, and even on his loan spells, it's actually been in the channel where Martinelli is. I think even against PSV, he was on that other wing and really didn't offer too much, in the sense of he was trying to be direct, but nothing really came off for him. Now, whether or not that's the quality of the opposition, perhaps that's something to do with it, and maybe playing against a arguable championship defence has helped him out there, and it maybe that is his kind of level. But you know what? If it's the thing that gives him his momentum and his confidence to then push on against better sides that we're going to play in the league, then I'm all for it. But it looked like playing in that right-hand channel is what he needed. There was a bit more space for him there. Everybody was kind of expecting, I suppose, these days that if Saka was there, or you would expect Vieira or even Odegaard, they all want it on their left foot. And he came in there as a right-footed player and completely changed everything that they would probably been drilled about all week, because Saka will play 90 minutes and he'll spend most of his time wanting it on his left foot. And then, unfortunately, they've kicked him off the park, and we brought on a guy and they've got to completely change everything they were thinking about. And he was just that opposite. That's why I think why he got so much space and made that space for him was just that tactic. The tactics they've been working on, just they didn't account for a player like that to be in that position. And I think that's where he's got to take his opportunities. And I think he's always had that goal-scoring threat. I remember in his youth, and I know some people may laugh or scoff at the player that I would mention that he used to play up front with when he was a kid. It was Jadon Sancho. They came through together as kids, on the same estate, and they would play as a front two. And you can see that's where he's got that kind of killer instinct, playing off, again, they're both small kids. Neither of them are huge. We don't have a huge side at Arsenal either. So he's used to dovetailing, especially when Saka or Martinelli like to get close to Jesus, or they just interchange. There's always at least two of them in there. All small, diminutive guys. They know what balls are going to come into them. No one's trying to knock it down to them. It's all going to be to your feet, maybe at chest height, tops. But otherwise, he knows what kind of things he's going to get. And he looked like he was playing that game on instinct rather than necessarily on tactics. And I think that's where we've seen him before when he's had his kind of cameos, is he was been almost doing what he was told rather than relaxing into it. And he seemed a lot more relaxed when he came on. Maybe that's because he came on, we'd already scored and he wasn't trying to have to break that game open. It didn't have to be, or they weren't looking to him to go, like I suppose at PSV, was you're starting in this game, unlock that defence. That's your job. Whilst we'd already done that in the first half, I think that obviously gave him that platform to really just free himself. I think maybe the assist that he got is an assist in fantasy football world, but I don't think there's anything clinical about it. Being able to just play a square ball to Thomas Partey. I think Elneny can do that. Sandy Lokonga could do that. I think the only player we couldn't be is if we got Kolasinac back. He probably couldn't play that square pass. But otherwise, yeah, I think, the cameo, or, I want to see more from him because he really looked like a guy that could come in. As Daniel was saying, everybody knows now that to play in that certain position, you need to have this certain way of playing. And it doesn't actually really matter if you're Saka, play like Saka. It's do what Saka is doing, or you see it with Eddie as well. Eddie is a completely different player since the summer. I mean, I think there were many of us that would have gone, the Eddie from last season, we would have driven him to wherever, whichever club wanted him. We would have driven him there and said, thank you very much, I'm taking the money and gone. But the start he had, where he started to look a lot like Gabriel Jesus, you're thinking, there's something about this, something going on down at Colney, and long may it continue.
Yeah, for me, the main thing with Reiss is, I mean, he will probably, you would imagine he'll probably play on Thursday. Saka trained today, and Arteta said he's fine, but he shouldn't be starting that game against Zurich. We need him for Sunday, and arguably, you just treat him with kid gloves this week, and you say to Reiss, right, go and replicate what you did on Sunday. Go and have another game against Zurich and enjoy yourself. The one thing I really hope is that even if Reiss does go back to the bench on Sunday, which you'd expect him to if Saka is fit, I hope he's the option we turn to play left wing rather than Eddie. Because I'm sorry, Mikel, I love what you're doing. Eddie don't work on the left. All right. I mean, some would argue he doesn't work through the middle at the moment, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, it doesn't work on the left. Something that does seem to work though this year, Daniel, is Thomas Partey's right foot seems to have finally found his range. It still puts plenty over the bar. Don't get me wrong, but that. In fact, we'll couple the two other goals together as one, really, rather than going through every individual goal. But both those goals, the swing and the slot from Partey, and the intricate footwork followed by the bang from Odegaard to cap off a lovely day. Two really nice goals, weren't they? Both slightly different, but both technically very good from two players who are finding their best form.
Yeah, I think I won't labour too much on Partey's goals, but I think that it's a style of goal that you expect from that type of player. Whether it's him, whether it's when Elneny scored a few of those, whether it's N'Golo Kante, Gilberto back in the day, anyone playing in that deep position, you kind of expect them to every now and again contribute a couple of rockets. And if you think back to when we first signed Granit Xhaka, those were the goals he was scoring. He only seemed to score those goals. I actually think the player that he is now is just like incredible. I think that they're probably, I would argue that the two most important players to the way that we're playing at the moment are Martinelli and Granit Xhaka. But the Odegaard goal was, as you say, it was great technique, great feet. But it's a kind of, it's the sort of, I call them the Carlos Vela goal. It's the one that looks great when you're already winning 4-0. What I want to start seeing is that he did that because he felt comfortable and confident. Because well, if I miss, doesn't matter because we're already winning 4-0. The game's won. I'd like to see Odegaard doing that more regularly early on. And when he has shown that kind of confidence and that kind of willingness to try something, think back to the Spurs game, last season, and he scored that goal. That's what he's capable of. And I think that there's a lot more in him to do that on a more regular basis. But I think sometimes, I'm not going to say the pressure of captaincy or anything like that, because I think that's a bit of a cliche, but I think that you see it a lot with creative midfielders. Every midfielder we've had in that position, you saw it with Ozil, you saw it with Fabregas, that it took them a while to find their goal scoring boots because they were too hesitant, either hanging on to the ball a little bit too long because they want to make the perfect pass, taking one more touch than they need to because they don't want to be the guy who misses. And I think adding that element of risk taking, once he gets that and he starts scoring on the regular, I think it's going to be a great thing for the club, because we've got goals coming from all over. And I think the two areas where we need to improve on the pitch is probably more goals actually coming from central positions, from Odegaard and from Jesus. He's playing blindingly well at the moment, loads of assists, and he's taking up great positions, and he's pulling defenders here, there and everywhere, but he's also got to start putting the ball in the back of the net. And I think that we're top of the league at the moment, but there's levels that this Arsenal team can still aspire to and achieve. And I don't think it's luck that we are where we are. I think we are where we are because we've got bloody good players, we've got a good coach, we've got good strategy, our tactics are almost spot on in every game. The substitutions are usually pretty good. The big tactical decisions, I can't think of any that have been majorly wrong in the last year or so, or certainly ones that you couldn't put down to the fact that the quality of player wasn't quite what it needed to be. But the recruitment has been brilliant. And I think we can look at the team now and say, okay, we could do more in depth. You know, we need someone to properly play back up to Thomas. We need people who can fill in for Martinelli and the rest of it. But actually, when you look at how young the team is, and you look at those little things that can be improved on, so Odegaard playing with that same freedom in the first half of the match that he does when we're already 2 or 3-0 up. You had extra goals coming in from Jesus. I think I've call me mad, but I think winning the league would not surprise me with this team, because I think everything's right. And as I said, there's levels to come, and I think as we get deeper into the season, this World Cup is going to knock a lot of things out of whack. But if we come back and we keep playing the way that we have, and we keep pushing on, don't be surprised if Arsenal win the league. I do not subscribe to the view that this is Man City's league to win, and we're just giving them the best run at the moment. I actually, Arsenal are in the lead. We've got the points. We've got the games in hands on other teams. It's we're the front runners, and deservedly so.
Yeah. I must admit, I do. I'm very sort of torn on where I feel we are at the moment in terms of the, like you said, you can downplay it for a while, but there does come a point where you have to start looking at it and going, well, actually, where are we? Where are we going now? Like, where are we? What are we aiming for in terms of what's the ceiling limit? And you do wonder what Arteta might say to them behind closed doors. There does seem to be a collective from the group that they are aiming a bit higher than maybe the fans are at this stage in time. But time will tell, I guess, in that regard. Josh, I want to sort of a bit randomly looking at, because it sounds silly to say there isn't too much to talk about after a 5-0 win, but genuinely there isn't, because I thought we were thoroughly sort of proficient in what we had to do, and we took the chances, we got the win. Does it kind of hinge for you a little bit now on what happens with the Chelsea game on Sunday? Because I sort of feel like we're still, in terms of media and everything, and I know that it doesn't really matter because we don't care, but is there an argument to sort of say that if we don't beat Chelsea, there will be that element of what we felt in the last couple of weeks from the fan base, where it's all just gone a little bit like, oh, we're just sort of hobbling a bit, Equally, if we beat Chelsea, do we then all have to say, well, actually, no, we need to take this title challenge seriously now? Because it just feels like there's a lot on this game on Sunday. And of course, that's before we play tomorrow. But is that how you see it in terms of our biggest test, maybe, of the recent weeks?
Sorry, have we all seen Chelsea?
I know.
I was, you know where I was on Saturday, right?
Yeah, but I just
booing Graham Potter to his face, telling him he's shit and getting under his thin skin. By the way, all Arsenal fans, Graham Potter has got the thinnest skin in the game. If you boo him, he'll just get rattled. That's what we've been missing all of these times. When he beat us at Ostersund's, when he beat us with Brighton, it was all because just boo him. We were too nice at the Emirates. Boo him. That's it. That's all that happened. That is the reason why they collapsed and lost 4-1. Was because of that hostile atmosphere. He doesn't like it up him. And I think we can see we've got that group now. I know they've been getting some interesting, I think some sly digs from I'd say traditional tabloids, if we put them at what kind of D rates, the Evening Standard's right at the top, because Simon Collins writes for them, so that's right. It can only be at the top. We're putting Red Tops down there somewhere, and then you've got like Sport something Bible or Lad something. Those ones that are going and having a go at these boys, that are the reason why we're doing, I'd say partly down to why we're doing so well. It's because they're helping to generate that atmosphere. It's, we've been talking about the improvement on the field. Let's talk about the improvement in the stadium as well. And you've got to give those lads it's the stuff that there's the supporters that are now there that have been going and were probably making that noise at Highbury, just a bit long in the tooth now. Don't have the energy to stand up for 90 minutes and shout a bit. They've got to
believe in.
Yeah, and that as well. I think it's just not having something to believe in. It's having that group of fans that rain or shine will sing their hearts out. Everybody can sing You'll Never Walk Alone just before Liverpool kick off. What when they're 1-0 down? You don't hear them then. You hear tumbleweeds flying through the cop at that point. It's going to other grounds. I always remember going to Huddersfield and the noise there. They were losing 2 or 3-0, but constantly they are still putting that atmosphere in, and that's what we've missed at the Emirates. Is whilst we're kind of waiting for the goal, waiting for the reason to cheer, it was then just dead because no one was filling that silence. And the players, I think, all found it awkward. And now we've got a group of fans that are helping push that team forward. And then it's encouraging the rest of the stadium. It's not to say that there were people going, oh, I sit in a different block and I've been singing for 20 seasons ever since I've been at the Emirates. Yeah, it was happening. But the people who weren't sure about it and now singing, those that weren't singing before are now doing it because of this group. And I think that's the thing about when it comes to this Chelsea game, is making sure that we're creating that atmosphere. Things that Potter's doing with this Chelsea team right now do not scare me at all. From an Arteta point of view, from a De Zerbi point of view, if I sit on whichever side of the fence I want to, there's ways of getting at that team. And I think if we stick by our principles and we hit them early, they're there for the taking. And yeah, we may end up with a result like we got at United or like we got at PSV. But the thing that's changed from last season is when we got one of those losses, we then lost the next 2 on the bounce. I think it was at least 4 separate occasions where we lost a game and then we lost the next 2. Or I think it was maybe the last case, we lost 2 and then drew 1. What we're seeing now is this team is losing and going, I don't want to feel that shit anymore. That's the reason why we felt shit at the end of last season. And we managed to, last game of the season, we had to pin our hopes on Spurs fucking up. And the one time in their history they don't, we lose out.
I think on the atmosphere, a couple of things which are important. There's a process and a team that people can believe in. I think B, there's some decent songs. We haven't had any for a while. And when you think about all the people who had decent songs, they were all up in sticks and going somewhere else because, they didn't want to be part of the project. They wanted to go somewhere else because they wanted to win or whatever. And it was just heartbreak after heartbreak. And now we've got good quality players. When you think about when was the last time we lost a player where we were like, damn, can't believe we've lost that. We went through that period where even players, now we look back at it and go, oh, that's not that much of a bother. But, it did bother us when we sold Clichy and then we sold Toure and then, we sold Nasri and we sold Van Persie and Fabregas and Adebayor. Every decent player we had was just going out the door. It's why we end up loving people like Thomas Rosicky, despite the fact, we wanted them to have a good career because they'd suffered with injuries, but they stuck around. And what we've got now is a group of players who, because they're young, because they're growing together, the test is going to be in a couple of years whether, we hang on to them. But I think if we win stuff, we will hang on to them. Even when we lost Aubameyang, no one cared. A couple of people on Twitter cared, but no one really cared. And when he after 6 months, he leaves Barcelona and goes to Chelsea, we're like, yeah, so what? I couldn't care less, because we don't feel like we're losing our best quality players. We're keeping our best quality players and we're recruiting more. So I think that helps with the atmosphere, because when you sing a song about someone, you're not worried that next week they're going to be playing for someone else and scoring against you, which used to be a real fear. And also, I think another factor, and this is no disrespect to anyone who used to be in the stadium, I think because of COVID, so many season tickets went up for grabs. And I remember I just started a new job, and so I felt really crap that I couldn't afford it. But I was 36,000 on the season ticket list. I've been on the season ticket list since we moved to the Emirates. and I'd only made it up to the lofty heights of 36,000 in the list. I got offered season tickets last year. I couldn't afford them at the time. And now I'm back to 15,000. But even at 15,000, I've jumped up 21,000 places. So I think what we've actually got is a lot of new people in the stadium. And it's not to say that they're necessarily better, but I think we've got a lot of people who haven't taken that match day experience for granted, and they're there and they're new and they want to be part of it. And I think they're adding a new atmosphere. The people who have been around for a long time, who are already making an atmosphere, you add those people together. Was I think the people who kept hold of the vast majority of people who kept hold of their tickets are the people who've been going for 20, 30 years, and the people, not all, but I would say a significant number of people who gave up their tickets were probably people who just thought, well, I don't want to go anymore. This doesn't bother me. They probably weren't making that much noise. So not saying we've replaced bad supporters with good supporters, but I think what we've done is we've replaced maybe jaded supporters with hopeful supporters. And there's lots of reasons for that. But I think that it's a give and take process, in that the team have given us belief, and now the crowd is giving the team belief. And I said it when I was at the Liverpool game. And I'd loads of people going, oh, it's been like this for ages. And I'm just like, it might well have been. But in my experience, I've been see Arsenal a couple of hundred times over the last 20 years. I've been not as fortunate as a season ticket holder, but I've been to quite a few matches. And, I would say in the latter Wenger years, sort of, 2012 to 2018 was when I probably went the most. And during that period, I always felt that if we conceded a goal, or, we went 1-0 up and suddenly, the other team came back, or we were 1-0 down, the crowd was just like, oh, not this crap again. And it was a bit like we had a touch of the Fabianskis. Something bad would happen and the heads would go down and we'd never get our head back up. Whereas now I think we've got a touch of the Aaron Ramsdale. Stick 10 goals past us. We believe we're saving the next one, and we believe we're scoring one more than you. And I think that's been the big difference, because when that goal went in at Liverpool 2, 3, 4 years ago, I know if I'd been at that match, the crowd would have been, oh, you're rubbish, typical Arsenal, same old crap, stupid mistake, you've done this, you've done that. Immediately, it was people singing, Saliba's song, let's get behind the team, let's cheer them on. And then we go and smash in a couple more goals, and we have a pretty convincing win against a team. Okay, they're not at their best at the moment, but on their day, they can still turn people over. They've still got top quality players. So, it was a test for us. And I think that the crowd and the team are working. They've got, I hate this word, but they've got a synergy about them. I apologize profusely to everyone for using
I knew that word was coming.
It's an almost symbiotic relationship, It's, we're relying on them to keep us going, and they're relying on us to keep them going, and it's working. And long may it continue.
I agree with that, and I think it also sort of spits in the face of this idea that if there's a lot of talk at the moment about the blackout being lifted, and there was a lot of sort of, again, wringing of hands about the fact that we weren't anywhere on TV on Sunday, which was purely because Sky chose the Leeds Liverpool game the day before, so they didn't have access to play the two games on the Sunday. I just sort of feel in that regard that there's this argument that if you make every game on TV, people won't go. I think that's nonsense. I think there's still plenty of thousands of people who will still gladly go to games, because if the team is not even necessarily successful, if the team is playing well and the entertainment factor is there will be a demand, and people will still go. The only people that maybe will think twice about going are the same people that think twice about going now. People like myself who physically can't afford to go every week. Like, it's just, unfortunately, the world is the way the world is, and it doesn't matter whether you've been over this 1,000 times, but you don't have to be middle-aged, white, and live in North London to support Arsenal. You can be any creed and colour. You can be any background or religion, wherever you are.
News.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing, isn't it? And I would argue that you're almost more of a fan for getting up at 3 a.m. on, in Hong Kong or Australia, wherever, to watch a team than rolling out of bed on a Saturday morning and walking down the road. I say that with tongue in cheek, of course, but it doesn't make you any less of a fan if you choose to or can only afford to be at home and enjoy what the team is putting out. Just one other sort of subject I want to cover in terms of sort of looking ahead to things. Talking about Europe a bit, because I think it would be very dangerous to say we're already through top of the group on Thursday, because we're not. We still have to do a job against Zurich tomorrow. I think, if I had to put money on it, I'd be fairly confident in that particular game. But I'm just looking at the live stats for the Champions League at the moment and the teams that are going to drop in. Sadly, Spurs won't be one of them, because that would have been hilarious. But as we look at it right now, we know that Ajax are in, as they finished third in Group A. Leverkusen finished third in Group B. Barcelona finished third in Group C. Sporting in Group D. As the live standings are as of 8:30 in the evening on Tuesday, so this could all change. But as it stands right now, Salzburg will be joining them, as will Shakhtar. That's confirmed because they were the early kickoffs. Sevilla, we know what they're like in the Europa League. And as it stands right now, Maccabi Haifa, because Juventus hilariously are losing again, and Haifa are level with Benfica. That could change. So, that could arguably be Juventus. There's a couple of big names there, but arguably a couple of big names that are struggling, that are down on their luck. Equally, though, you don't really want to draw a few of those, do you? I look at Ajax, Barcelona, and Sporting, Sevilla. There'd probably be four I pick out. Do you feel like we need to be prioritizing one competition over the other? Are we one of the favourites for this Europa League? I'm really struggling with the Europa League this year. Like I know the group stage isn't fun, but you know what I mean? I can't determine where we should be prioritizing what at the moment.
I would say we are still probably one of the favourites going in. I think it got ever so slow. The odds were probably in our favour when we went in, probably level with Man United, and then got ever shorter as we were climbing up the Premier League, irrespective of what we were doing in Europe. And I think we're still there. When we drop those teams down, remember, if we win the league, win the top of the table, in Europa League, we bypass that playoff rounds. We get a bye to the round of 16. Every schmuck that finishes second has to go up and try and knock out one of those 8 teams that's dropping down from the Champions League. And that's where we saw Rangers and Frankfurt end up getting through that round, because they managed to avoid that tricky fixture where in the middle of February, I think it's when the round of 32 would drop in, it's early February, fixture congestion, players have just come back from World Cups. There's got other things going on in their leagues. We're talking about Sevilla. They might still be in the relegation zone by the time that comes round. They're not doing well in the league. Barcelona may have probably a Clasico drops at some point around that time of year. There'll be many things going on in league campaigns where one or two of those teams will possibly still be in a similar level of form, or have other priorities for them where they may end up slipping out. And a team like PSV will end up progressing because they can knock out one of those teams, because those are teams that are on the up. They finish second in their group. They've got the momentum. And we know that there are these intangibles that can kind of happen. I think the team that I would be most annoyed about, if I were to get through, would be drawing Shakhtar. I think it was a bit like the poison chalice of both Scotland and Wales drawing Ukraine as they fought to qualify for the World Cup. Is you're on the losing side, irrespective of what you do, if you knock them out or you don't, especially as their league campaign doesn't exist and what's going to happen to them in February. But there's still that kind of momentum that I think teams will have picked up again, especially with a longer enforced break. I know Germany aren't going back for ages. They're tacking their winter break onto the end of the World Cup. So I think there's a lot of things that, to be honest, I wouldn't be too annoyed if we almost put out a starting 11 that played against Forest, against Zurich. I know it won't happen, but I'd rather we got 2 or 3 up and then that was it. 3-0 up.
I think it'll
bring
be
the
strong.
kids home. yeah, we've got 5 subs to make as well. I think that's the other thing that really helps us this season, is that we could start with that strong lineup and then go, yeah, we ballsed up against PSV. Really, this should have been the game. A bit like, well, see the anyone have a look through the Man City team that's starting up against Sevilla, because they've topped their group. They're already qualified. Doesn't matter. We're going to name 6 academy products that you'll never hear of again until they're playing for Vincent Kompany's Burnley. That's basically their lineup. That's the thing that's the position we should be in, and I think we should be attacking Europa League as much as possible.
And you've got 2 players. Sorry, you got 2 players that could get fitness from this game as well. Elneny's back in full training now, and Zinchenko's training again today. So that if there's ever a game to blood them back in, surely this is the one you give them like 45 to an hour.
It sounds ridiculous. There's only maybe 3 games after this one before the World Cup. We've also got a Brighton game midweek as well.
Yes, 2 Premier League. You got Chelsea and Wolves midweek, and then sandwiching that is the EFL Cup game with Brighton. That's it. Yeah,
and that's it before the World Cup. And to be honest, I'm not expecting. I would be putting the kids out for the EFL Cup. I wouldn't be surprised if Brighton do exactly the same thing. We know we've got more fixtures to slide into our calendar than other teams, because we also had to move the Man City game, as well as then losing 2 games
that's true.
For the Queen's funeral and the was it 2 weeks of mourning that we had. Those are the things that we're going to end up with a pretty tight fixture calendar. And yeah, I think that's the thing we have to really carefully manage now. But yeah, Daniel, I'm trying to think what Chris's next point was going to be.
Yeah, I think his next point is shopping has arrived.
Yeah, maybe it's that. It's an hour away. Who knows? But yeah, is there anyone that you would want to avoid if they got through that kind of playoff round?
Not particularly. I think the way I look at the Europa League is I would actually rather we played the best available teams, even those who are dropping out of the Champions League, as early as possible, because we either beat them and then we remove our main competition, or we lose and then we can just get on and focus on the league. What I really wouldn't want to do is get to a point where we're facing Barcelona in the semi-finals, and it's like, oh, we've got a real chance of getting to a final and winning a European Cup here. But at that time, we're sort of jostling, in top 4 positions, trying to juggle FA Cup matches, a congested fixture list, and thinking, this might be our chance where, we could win the league, we could finish top 4, St. Totteringham's Day might finally come again, that kind of thing. I don't want to be in that position where we feel that we have to put out our very best teams in a European semi-final because it's our only chance of getting past Barcelona. I'd rather play them now, get it done as soon as possible. I'd rather, if I'm honest, I'd rather we didn't have the distraction of the Europa League. Not because I think it's a bad competition. I think it's a good competition, and I think it's a worthy cup. But it's more the case of, we do have a limited squad. There isn't that much rotation. We know that there are 2 or 3 players in our team that you take them out, just one of them out, and we look a completely different team. You take Partey out of the midfield. Who have we got to replace him? Who's playing instead of, Martinelli? We're saying that we're hoping Nelson might be able to fill that spot, but Nketiah is good at what he does. But if Jesus isn't playing, we play a different way. He can't fill that role. If we don't have Saliba, it's like, okay, well, fine. We don't have Saliba. We're going to slot. We're gonna slot White back in to the defense, and I thought he was our best defender last year. So the fact that he's been pushed out onto the right early on in the season, I was like, I don't feel comfortable with that, because I feel like he doesn't deserve to lose his place, but he's been fantastic as a right back. But then you lose a fantastic right back, and who's the replacement? You know, if we've still got injuries and Tomiyasu's on the left, do we really want Cedric playing for 4 or 5 games? I mean, I don't mind him slotting in every now and again, but I wouldn't want to rely on him. And I think that's the position that we're in, is that we are going to have to, after Christmas, make some hard choices in prioritising what do we actually want to be in. Do we want to disrespect the FA Cup by playing kids? If we're still in, you know, the whatever the milk cup is now, the Coca-Cola cup, I can't remember what it is. Carabao? What is it? Is that what it is now?
Yeah.
Carabao, there we go. So, you know, if we're still in that, and we get to a point like, do you remember a few years, I'm going back quite a number of years, I think it was actually 2007 when we got to the final. We played kids in every single game, and then in the final, we decided we were going to bring the big guns in, and we brought in 4 or 5 of our main starters, and we lost the game anyway.
That was the Walcott Terry kicked in the face by Diaby game, wasn't it?
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. You know, and that was then replicated a number of times over the years, but that was the first time that we actually did something like that. And I think that I don't want Arteta to be in that position where we're in a cup. Okay, it's a cup, and you want to win, but ultimately we've got to think, what is our squad capable of, and where do we want to be? And we all agree that we want to be back in the Champions League, and we want Arsenal to be winning the title, or as close to winning this title as possible. You could offer me 3 European leagues, Europa League trophies on the trot, another 2 or 3 FA Cups, you know, and a couple of EFLs, you know, Carabao Cups. But I want us to win the league. It's been 18 years. I want Arsenal to actually, you know, it's been, I can't even remember what season it was. 2013, 2014, when Leicester won. I might have even been as late as 2016. I can't remember now. When we somehow managed to have Tottenham finish 3rd in a 2-horse race. You know, we could have won the league that year. 2008, we could have won the league that year. But we haven't looked like really serious contenders for a long time. And the fact that, you know, okay, we're only 11, 12 games into the season and we're top of the league and it looks great. But I want us to still be there after 25, 30 games. And I think if we're pushing too hard on all fronts on the basis of, well, we're in the competition, so we'll give it our best, you know, shoot me down. But there are a couple of competitions where I'm like, do you know what? I don't want us to give it our best this year. I just want Saka to be fit. I want Odegaard to be fit. I want Martinelli to be fit. I want, you know, Saliba to stay fit, White to stay fit. I don't want to risk players going after the Europa League or, you know, the Carabao Cup or whatever. I just want to see us pushing for the league, doing our best in the league this season, because I think that is going to be the point in which things change for us for the better. Because once we're up there, if we almost win the league, we get back into the Champions League, or if, you know, we win the league, that's when, you know, I'm not saying that we're going to buy this player, but in Sky Sports today, they had an article about where's Bellingham going to go next? Oh, is he going to go to Man City? Oh, is he going to go to Barcelona, or is he going to go to Real Madrid? And I'm thinking 10, 15 years ago, people would have been going, oh, it's a 3-way battle between, you know, Juventus, Arsenal, and Real Madrid for this wonder kid, who invariably we didn't end up getting. But the point is that we're not even considered a place for them now. And I think that if we're Premier League winners, or we're the runners up, we're back in the Champions League, and you've got a player of Bellingham's quality who's looking for a team where he feels he can achieve something, you'd be looking at Arsenal going, do you know what? They've got a young team. They've got an ambitious coach. They almost won the league, or they've just won the league. You know, this is a team that's going to be together for the next 5, 6, 7 years. You keep a good quality team together for 5 or 6 years, you'll win trophies galore. We just need to break that duck. And we've won a few FA Cups over the last 18 years, but it hasn't been a catalyst to go on and achieve better things because it's a cup competition. And I love the FA Cup. The FA Cup has given me some of the best memories of my life, but winning leagues, winning titles, that's what attracts the best players. That's what keeps players at your club.
It's different gravy, isn't it?
That's the challenge for us, and that's what we need to do. So yeah, the Europa League, every other cup can, as far as I'm concerned, this season can get in the bin. Put everything we've got into staying top of the league. Absolutely everything.
Well, I personally want. I mean, I'll take them all. We'll just do the treble, and then we don't have to worry. So, But yeah, I know what you mean. I sort of feel like what we need to do in an ideal world. This is of course an ideal world, which we don't live in. But in an ideal world, we go and beat Chelsea on Sunday. We beat Wolves before the break. We go into the World Cup, top. And then we can see what we've got. Because don't forget, it's not just injuries, but it's also the mental aspect of the players we get back after the World Cup. If as we all know is going to happen, England crash at the first hurdle, Saka will be a bit down. Jokes aside, but there is going to be there's the physical and the mental aspect of coming back from a World Cup, which we're going to have to take into consideration. And then there's the flip side of that, where we hopefully will have a fit Smith Rowe back, for example. And you've got the transfer window, which we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, about who or what we might need to reinforce. But having the likes of Elneny, Cedric, and Zinchenko potentially back fit again for tomorrow is a bonus, because it does give you that opportunity to still have enough quality to beat the opposition in front of you, but rest some of those key players if you need to. So we shall see what happens there. And good point, Josh, about the Europa League. The fact that teams who are in second have still got that looming God knows what to come. As there's quite a few decent sides in those second places. Man United are one of them. They're behind Sociedad, so unless they win tomorrow, I presume I suppose in theory they could draw, but they would be fine. So it'd be interesting to see what the draw is and when that's done. Is it done before the World Cup or afterwards when they draw it?
I imagine it'd be done.
The draw itself.
Yeah, I'd assume it'd be before, because they don't need to wait for anything.
Yeah.
At that point.
No, just get it done so everyone knows who. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then after we come back on Boxing Day, don't we, with West Ham? So it is all go. Speaking of which, all go. Due to the fact that your host with the most, or lack thereof, there being me, has a shopping delivery in around about 10 minutes' time, we are going to do a slightly shorter show this week, purely because it's a very big delivery and I'm not going to have time to take it otherwise. So we are going to do a slightly shorter show this week, but we do have a little bit of time left just to do a bit of quick fire on the questions. We haven't had a huge amount, so we'll just run through the ones we've got, Josh, and then if anybody's got anything in the chat that they want to fire across now, we'll do our best to nip through those as well. So what have we got?
We have one question. It's from Phil Macker.
Oh, even better.
Yeah. And the question is, it might even be tongue-in-cheek. Kris, I will ask you quickly, and I think we might have covered it already. Could Saka being out injured almost be a blessing, as not sure Arteta ever wants to stop playing him?
Yeah, I did see that. I don't know about blessing, but I get the point of view in that. Yeah, I think I alluded to it last week when I said about that sort of comment from Arteta that Daniel touched on as well, about the whole, playing 60 games. If you want to be an elite player, you've got to get used to that. I tend to disagree, and I do wonder if I was surprised that he alluded to it again, because I just think it's a very old-fashioned mentality sort of talk, and I don't think that's the modern way now. Personally, it's actually a bit of a shame that we've got such a big game on Sunday, because Saka's the sort of player that he gets momentum by playing. He's one of those players that he gets better the more games he plays, and the more consistency he gets. He's not a player you can bring in and out, which sort of implies to me that he'll probably get some minutes tomorrow. Probably from the bench, you would imagine Reiss would start. But I have a suspicion that he will play some part tomorrow, just to keep his sort of match fitness going and make sure that injury is absolutely fine for Sunday. But yeah, we do have to be careful. And again, depending on how far England go, you would expect him to be part of that setup at least. I mean, I personally think he should be starting for England anyway. But if he does, that's yet more games. So I get the sentiment. But I think as long as Arteta's there, I think he'll probably play most of the games, to be honest. I did notice one other question, actually, that we did have from Hantumi, which was directed at me, so I'll just quickly address it, which was the thoughts on David da Costa at Lens. Would he fit the Premier League or our system? The short answer to that, Hantumi, is yes, but no. Fabio Vieira is quite a similar player. I don't think we would look at someone like him. He's a very talented Portuguese under-21 international. I think a sort of an Arsenal type of move would be one step too early. He's not even a regular at Lens yet, so he would need to break into that side. He'd be far better sticking with them for a season or two yet before his inevitable move to Aston Villa or someone like that, where he gets drifted into the background, never to be seen again. But yeah, very talented player, but we have Fabio Vieira. I think we're probably well stocked in that department. Have we got anything else? I don't think we really have anything else.
Avon asked if Marseille are a Champions League quality team. No, too many Arsenal players.
Yeah, I mean their record speaks for itself. It's not great.
Yeah.
On paper they are, history wise, etc. But yeah, I mean,
is that history with or without brown envelopes?
Well, there's certainly a very suspect element to their history of the Champions League, it would be fair to say. But that said, I think there's quite a few teams in the current Champions League that are not fit for the Champions League. Atletico Madrid, Juventus, Spurs. Christ, what have I done? But yeah, I mean, that group, it is funny that I did see quite a lot of Spurs fans giving it the beans after they got that result last night and think, oh, look at us, we're flying. It's like, you literally are in the worst group of all of them, and you've limped through with one leg trailing behind you that's been smashed into 1,000 pieces. Like, the first good team they play, they're gone. Like, it's absolutely nailed on. They are gone. So, yeah, enjoy it while you can, Spurs fans. Right. Just before we do sort of close for the show then, we don't really do predictions, but I don't want to sort of know scores or anything. But Daniel, looking ahead to the games this week, are you where are you in terms of confidence? Just give me a very brief sort of summary. Are you confident that we can win both tomorrow and against Chelsea on Sunday?
Oh, no, without a shadow of a doubt. Yep. Pretty confident that we'll. If there was a game that I'm less confident about, it would be tomorrow, Zurich. I think that not that we would lose, but I think that it's the sort of game that might be a bit scrappy, bit tired, players being saved for Sunday, or maybe players being rushed back for the reasons that you mentioned to try and keep them in the rhythm. But so yeah, I've got no worries about us topping the group tomorrow. No worries about that at all. And I think that I think Chelsea. I'm gonna predict a comfortable win.
Wow.
I think they're a good team, but I think we're significantly better. And I think if they can, get stumped 3-1 by Brighton, then there's no
4-1.
reason.
Sorry.
Was it 4-1?
Yeah, 4-1. Yeah.
It's 4-1.
I saw it at 3. Yeah. Oh well, that's even better. So
scored in the 90th minute as well.
Yeah, they got a late cherry on top.
I didn't see the score at that point. I think I was cursing my accumulator because I'd missed out on something else. But yeah, but no, I'm pretty confident that given how we played, even when we lost to United, we played well. Games that we don't play well in, we tend to scrap a win. And games in which we do play well in, apart from the United outlier, we won convincingly. And I just think that I'm predicting a convincing win, or what would be considered convincing against a team of Chelsea stature.
Yeah, I will 100% take that personally. I'm on board with that. I can get on board with that 100%. Danny's been in the chat briefly just to say there's no preview or post-game show tomorrow because his webcam isn't working. don't know about you.
He's got to stop wasting his webcam battery on his OnlyFans.
Precisely. I'm calling sus to that comment. I think Danny's been on the old chatterbait a bit too much, and his webcam's overheated or got covered in some sort of substance or something. There's an image
I think
for
he's
you.
Actually just he's had a shaving accident. That's what I'm expecting.
I was going to be scaring people on Omegle, giving them pop quizzes on TV and film shows and whatnot.
Good Lord. Some of the images I don't even want to share with the listeners because, Halloween's gone now. But yeah, I don't know. I know Carl is usually across like things like the spaces and stuff. So don't be surprised if something pops up tomorrow. I mean, if we win like 17-0 or something, we might pop in to say hello. But or if we lose 3-0 and the world is melting down, we might pop on. But just no promises, basically. As we said 100 times before, we ain't paid to do this, so we do it when we can for your viewing pleasure.
Danny promised actual money.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe we shouldn't have said that with you live on air. Yeah,
nice.
Danny pays us in dollary dues from Fairyland. But yes, so I think all that really remains to be said is let's hope for a positive result tomorrow. Let's hope even stronger for a positive result on Sunday, because I think we have to start saying if we can beat Chelsea on Sunday, I think we realistically have to start thinking about, or if we weren't already, we have to be thinking about just how far we could go this season. And let's be honest, beating Chelsea, and I've already seen the advert with Aubameyang on BT Sport. I hate his face already. I'd like very much for us to put him on his arse and put Chelsea to the sword.
It's amazing how quickly he can go off people, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Although, in fairness, like, don't get it wrong, I'm not Captain Hindsight. I loved him when he was here, but I still remember when we first signed him, and I remember talking to Drew about it and going, he hasn't got the best track record for when things aren't going well. Even back to his St Etienne days, like, he always had that in him, and I just worried about where this would end, and look where it's gone. But fuck him, fuck Chelsea. Yeah,
it was just a shame that the manager that he fell out with famously left shortly after he joined.
Yeah. Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought that was going to happen? Yeah. Anyway, Daniel, thanks for coming on, mate. Appreciate it. It's nice to have you back in, and I'm sure we'll have you again. And Josh, thank you for being Danny, and probably more organised, to be honest. Higher caliber of podcast production.
Don't worry, I've just found some things that I can put on the screen. Look at that.
Oh, look, there's Zinny. Look,
sticker. How about this one?
Oh, for Christ! I think that is as good as time as any to wrap this shit up. But yeah, thank you for pressing the buttons. Like I said, no promises with regards to a post-show game or post-game show tomorrow. We'll see what we can do. Depends if Carl is holding London together with sticky tape or not. We'll see what we can do. But if not, we will be back after Chelsea. I would imagine Danny will probably do something previewing Chelsea as well, so look out for that. If you have been watching live, give us a little thumbs up. If you are watching in delay, or indeed in the future, who knows, then do subscribe to the YouTube channel, or obviously the various podcast platforms. And if you do flick the subscribe button for notifications, it will let you know when we go live, so you never miss a show. I mean, in theory, YouTube is weird with what it actually tells you what's live and what isn't, but in theory, that's what should happen. So please do. And don't forget, we do go through the comments. So, I'm always across those, because I always like to see how many people hate me or love me. I don't care at all. But I am always in the comments to reply to people, as indeed is Danny. So, feel free to leave a comment and we will message you back accordingly. Right. That is it for tonight. Many thanks to my guests. I'm off to take the old delivery because I have no food. Sad times. Till next time, ladies and gents, keep it Arsenal, and we'll speak to you very soon. Take care.
I forgot.